This is a lecture on Chapter 10, which deals with the document object model. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to discuss exactly what that is. We'll then look at examples from the document object model. We'll then look at document object model events and eventually an event example. Now, DOM is a W3C standard. It defines a standard for accessing documents like HTML and XML. There are three different levels of the DOM. There is a core DOM that is the standard for any structured document. There is the XML DOM, which is the standard model for XML documents, and there is the HTML DOM, which is the standard model for HTML documents. The DOM, or document object model, defines the objects and properties of all document elements. It also defines the methods that you're going to use to access them. The reason this is important is that when you use the DOM, you can make your interfaces look very natural and do a lot of things with them. The XML DOM, already said that, okay. The HTML DOM is a standing object model for HTML. When we look at HTML, we know we can go in and we can create an HTML page, but using the DOM, we can dynamically get, change, set up, do whatever we need to do for HTML elements. Now, the first thing you have to understand is that everything in an HTML document is a node. And I don't know that I'd say is a node as much as belongs to a node. The entire document is a document node. So everything in that document belongs to that document node. Every HTML element is an element node. So if I have paragraphs, they are element nodes. The text in an HTML element is a text node. If I have attributes, whatever attributes they may be, they are attributes nodes, and comments are comment nodes. And we can access any one of these nodes in code. And you can see how that would allow you to dynamically change things. Right, so here is our information in our basic HTML page. This is a HTML, that's our document. This is a head node, this is a title node. Now if you were going to access this title node, you'd go head, HTML head, and then title. On the other hand, if you wanted to go to the body, it would be HTML body and then H1 or P. That's the way these nodes work. Okay, the root node is HTML. All other nodes in the document are contained within the HTML. The HTML node has two child nodes, as I've just pointed out to you, head and body. The head node holds the title node, while the body node holds H1 and P. We have text. Text element nodes do not contain the text. So my title, even though up here it looks like it contains text, that text is not in the title. It's not a property of title, to use an object-oriented term. The text of a node is stored. The text of an element node is stored in a text node. So the element node title holds a text node with the value of DOM tutorial. The reason for this and being so specific is if you want to change the text that is associated with the title, the DOM tutorial is not the value of the title node. You can't get to it by going to title node.value. Rather, it's in a text node, and we can get to that text node by going to the inner HTML property. So if we want to change the text of an element node, we have to go to the inner HTML node property to get to it. So here's what we have. We have document, head, title, text, body, element, an A, href A for attribute, element, my link, my header. Okay, everything being under the root element HTML. In the node tree, the top node is called a root. Every node except the root has exactly one parent. The node can have any number of children. A leaf is a node with no children. Siblings are nodes with the same parents. So let's go up here, okay? This is the root, right? Head is the parent of title. Parent is the title of text. Text is a leaf because it doesn't have any children. If we look over here, element is the parent of, the body is the parent of A and H. A is the parent of my text. H1 is the parent of my header. A and H1 are siblings because they both have the same parent. The text for A is a leaf because it has no children. The text of my header is a leaf because it has no children. So essentially, if you want to get down to whatever the text says and change it, then you have to get into the leaves. Right, and this is the one we were just looking at, okay? Remember, DOM tutorial is not a value of the title node. DOM lesson 1 is not the value of H1. And hello world is not the value of P. All right. We already looked at, okay, we've looked at this. The HTML node has no parent, it's the root. The parent of head and body is HTML. The parent node of hello world text node is P. The HTML node has two child nodes called head and body. So head and body are siblings because they have the same parent, which is HTML. Head has one sibling, which is title. Title has one child, where the text node is DOM tutorial. Right. H1 and P1 are siblings, and both because they're both child nodes of the same parent. The parent node of hello world text node is the P node. All right. The head element is the first child of the HTML element, and the body element is the last child of the HTML element. Why is that important? Because sometimes when you're going all the way through the document object model, you have to be able to keep track of where the stuff is. The H1 element is the first child of body, and P is the last child of body. And that's based on where how they are in order. The higher up they are, the closer they are to first in a vertical order. Your properties and methods define the programming interface of the HTML DOM. DOM properties are something that is. DOM methods are something that does. Remove or add node. Okay, so if we look here at DOM properties, inner HTML is the text value. Node name is the node. Node value is the value of this, whatever this X is. the parent node. You can get the parent node, you can get the child, you can get the attributes, where X is an HTML element. Okay. Now, some things you can do, and the most common by far is to get the element by ID. ID is the same thing as a name. So exactly what you're saying is go get it by name. And that allows you to go directly to any element as long as you've given it an ID. You can also get it by a tag name. You can insert, and we're going to see this because we're going to look at a table. So you can insert or remove child nodes, where X is a node object of the HTML element. The only way to get to the content of the element is by using the inner HTML property. So if you want to change the content of the page, you will be working with the inner HTML property. We're going to take a look at that. So if we look right here, we're going to say PID equals intro, and it's going to say hello world. Script type JavaScript, okay. Text equals document.getElement by ID intro dot inner HTML. So what this is telling this is to go to this paragraph. How do I know it's this paragraph? Because what I'm doing here, I've given it a name called intro, and I've told it to get the intro, get the element by ID intro. Now it wants me to go to the inner HTML and get that value. It positions me there, okay? So this says hello world. So I store hello world in the text. And now I'm going to write out the text from the intro paragraph plus text, which is this up here, which this was set equal to hello world. So you have the ID right here as intro. Now once you do that, then you can set the text information of the inner HTML to document. You can set the text so that it holds the value stored in the inner HTML by doing document.getElement by ID intro.inner HTML. Then you can output it by simply putting text. Now, I could have output it with document.getElement by ID yada yada yada, but I really didn't want to do that because that's not good programming practices to dump all that into one write statement. Okay, so this is one we just looked at. And okay, here's another thing we can do. Using JavaScript, we can script type JavaScript so we can find out the number of forms. So I can do document.write and find out the number of forms in that particular, on that particular page. I can also add information. So I can come in here and I can work with document anchors as a an array of anchors is what I was trying to say. So I can go in and find the correct answer there. All right, now I have this code, so that's the next thing we're going to look at. So let me go back here and let's look at the demo. All right, The first thing we're going to look at is a demo of multiplication tables. Now I am in IE 10. All right. When I click this, this did not just make this visible. This actually created this entire table. So the script, now in HE10, if you go over to Developer Tools, or if you click F12, and this is what you're going to get. All right. So, and that's going to be blank for the moment. So if we're going to expand this, and I'm going to link to this. Now when I go to script, oh, I'm sorry, wrong software. All right, if I come up here and I go to script, I've called this function ctable. I have set up 4 variables, tab1, row, I, and j. Now, here's what we can do if we're working with the DOM. tab1 equals document.createElementTable. table. So I've just created my table. Now I'm going to create my header. So I'm going to do row equals tab1.thead.insertRow -1. Now, the -1 makes sure that the line or the row always goes at the bottom of the table. You don't have to have that there, but if you have it there, then your browser is going to quit on you rather than just hang up. If you don't have the -1 there and it can't find the level of your table, then it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to sit there and spin. All right. So first thing we did is we created the table. Then we created a header. Now we put a row in the header. Now we're going to insert the cells. And we're setting inner HTML equal to blank. Right? And notice that I have row insert cell sub-0 row.cells sub-0 inner HTML. And that's how you have to refer to that inner HTML. Now I'm ready for my loops. For I equals 1 to I less than 13, I'm sorry, because I'm only going to row 12, I++. So that's our increment. So here's how we can do this. We can do row.insert cell sub I, and we're going to insert row sub I, row cell sub I dot inner HTML equals I. So all we're doing here is counting, we're doing our header rows. So if you remember back over here, back over here, what we're doing is we're putting in the values for the basic multiplication table. All right, then that's what we're doing here. Then we're going to come in here and we're going to append a child onto the T-body. So what we're saying here is where I've created the thing. Now go put it on there. Go put it on a tree. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move through the rows and columns of all of the rest of this information. And we're not going to type any of it in. So row equals tabl.tbodies.insertRow. T-bodies is a group that holds the rows. So then you just start. You start with the row insert, and this is handling the very first row, inner HTML equals J. Row cells sub-0 dot class name equals first. Now once you've done the first one outside the loop, Then you come in and you say for I less than equal to, or I equal to 1, I less than 13, I plus plus. I'm sorry, I can't show you any better than that, but that's just going to stay right there. All right. Then I'm going to insert the rows where the inner HTML property is going to be equal to I times j. Then I have to go find the document and append the table into the document. If you do not append the table into the document, you will not be able to do anything with it, because you have to have some version of it in order to make it work. Okay. So that's this one. Now, hang on. I also have this link. Now what this link does is it takes you to a Microsoft site where it shows you information on how to build these things dynamically. Explains to you that you have the table and the T head and the T body, and that the TR is your row, and the TD defines a cell, and the TH makes a header cell. It's similar, the TH is similar to the TD, but it gives you a whole lot more headings that are appropriate for column headings. Centering and text, bold, and the column headings can be anything you need them to be. T-foot is going to provide a footer, which we're not going to use. Caption is nested in the table, but it's actually underneath the table. The column is the default values, such as a background or width. And the group is the group of columns. So if all of a sudden you decided you wanted to widen 3 of my 4 columns, you could do that. All right. So here's our table. We have a yellow and a darker yellow and a light sky blue are our colors. Table border is a light slate blue. Here is our columns that are set up. Here are our values. I only put 3 in. There's our values. Oops. So get him out of here. Sorry about that. I had a bug on my other screen. Okay. So this is what we're looking at here for our information. Now, here is the sample. This is what this looks like. All right. Okay, so if we viewed the source, now notice view source is different than going over there and using the developer tools. That's one of the reasons why I did this. And you see all the information is right here. Okay. Now, we made this table, we made that table using the create header. We did not put a footer. We did insert rows and insert cells. Once you do that, there are collections that are created. T-bodies is a collection of all the body objects in a table. T-rows is a collection of all the rows in a body, a head, a footer, or a table. Cells are a collection of all cells in either the table row or the table, the entire table. Okay? So when we look at the T-bodies, the T-bodies is all the bodies in a table. So you can't have more than one. I don't advise it. Keep it simple. there can be only one head and one foot. And if there's only the head and the foot are on the same level as the bodies. Okay? So that's why you can only have one head or foot. If you put any more than one head or one foot, it's going to go into the body's collection. Because you have a header, you have a body, and you have a footer. That's the basic way your page is set up. Your tables all have row collections. Now, rows, and they include the header and footer rows. You can use an insert row method to add a new table in. Each row is recognized by the TR element. Okay. So we can append an empty table, an empty row to a table at the end of it. Okay. Now, if we have rows that we want to get the information out, or we want to change something, like this wants to make them all bold, you simply set up a little loop looking at table.rows.length. The cells are created where you can add data to it. Every row has a collection of cells. The insert cell method inserts a TD, even if the row itself is part of the header. Okay. All right. So if we go back up here, hang on a minute. Yeah, that doesn't tell us what the T. Yeah, okay, never mind. Okay, we covered the rows. Okay, we're going to put the cells in. This inserts the row, inserts the cells, and then puts stuff in it. Now, when we look at the rows collection, we're also looking at something like arrays. You're going to use an index. It's no big thing. You're just going to use an index. Okay. So here is, this is the table object model being used to create the example table. All right. Put the data in and do whatever it needs to do. The model that I used when we create this, the table object model provides object-specific methods. Okay. And we have those. So we have all these collections. And we have all this stuff. But when we get down here, you'll see that we have an O table border. Table O, and that simply sets up the border. Okay? Now, I got to find that. There it is. If I come here, instead of viewing that I go to Developer Tools, and I look here, oops. Okay. This table object model uses a class. All right, and we don't have to worry about that if we do it dynamically. So there's a difference between creating a table dynamically and using a table object model. Both creating the table dynamically and using the table object model require the use of DOM, But in the table, creating the table dynamically, you're using all of the attributes that you currently have. If we're looking at, get down here in a minute, the object model, you'll see that it is a little bit different. Whereas up here, hang on. Or maybe I can just do view source on this one. Okay. Notice we just have our TDs, we have our table, we have our TH here all the way across. We have our heading. Okay, if we come down here, here's all our data. Now, on the other hand, if I use the table object model, give me a minute here. All right. I have to say table equals O table. Here's our border. Here's all this stuff. And it's essentially creating the table and two table bodies. Then I go into the function fninit, which uses O table for the table object, and then has to create the header, create the footer. There's our stock data. Here's our new array. Now here are your other I don't know what I was going to say right there. So then you inserted the row, and then you set your attributes. The table object model is more wordy, and as long as we can continue at this moment to do things dynamically. Hang on here a minute. View source. See, what we've done here is we've simply created these. Okay, now that's the source, but if we go and we view this, which is already on here somewhere. Okay, hang on. There we go. I had turned it on. It was on for before. Okay. Hang on. I'll get there. Okay. All right. There's my header. My footer. Here's my header. Okay. Here's my footer. My next row down, my yellow row. There's my darker yellow row. Here's my light blue sky information. And I'm good. But it's just a different way of looking at them. All right. Okay. That essentially is what was covered in Chapter 10. So that's where we're going to stop this lecture.